There's no such thing as sight reading. And if you're getting into advanced concepts and it's becoming harder and harder to understand, then you're doing it wrong. Everything in music theory is some variation of the original spelling and visualization of the major scale. And everything in regard to ear training is a variation of the original sound of the major scale. So when we learn major scales, the goal is to learn what does it look like, how do you spell it, and what's it sound like. Those are not in order of importance. You have to do all three. And then everything that comes after that is a variation of those concepts. So once you learn your original major scales by sight, by spelling, and by sound, you can take that same information and you can visualize line, 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 or space, 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 and you get a 3-note arpeggio, 3-note chord. We're not using new notes. We're not using new key signatures. It's not new lines and spaces. It's the same ones you learned when you learned your major scales. It's the same ones. And you can learn those arpeggios starting on each note of the scale. All right? So if you're in the key of C, you can start on note 1 and go line, line, line. You get a C major. You start on note 2, you get DFA, you get a D minor. Start on note 3, you get an E minor. So you can learn all the arpeggios in the key. And what are they going to sound like? Well, they're going to sound like the original major scale, but you're playing every other note. So there's no new data to learn. You're taking past knowledge and experience and adding this variable of only using the lines and spaces. Now, once you learn the 3-note chords this way, well, we can take that same 3-note chord and add one extra line or space to the top. You get a 4-note chord. So the percentage of the new concept that is new is only 33%. We already have a 3-note thing, so you already know that part. We're just adding one more thing on top. When you learn a new concept, your focus should be on the variable. And as you advance, the percentage of the new concept that's truly new is going to be a smaller and smaller percentage of the whole, and your base knowledge is going to expand. Now, if we take the 4-note chord, we add an extra note to the top of that, and you get a 5-note chord. And what's it going to sound like? It's going to sound like a 4-note chord with an extra note stacked on top. It's still in the same key. We're not using new key signatures or new lines or new spaces or new spellings, right? And so now we already had 4 of them, right? We only had 1, so we only added 25% new material. So as we advance, the percentage of the new concept that's truly new becomes smaller and smaller. We can take the 5-note thing, add an extra note to the top, and get a 6-note thing. We've only increased the new material by 20%, right? Right? So the variable is going to become a smaller and smaller percentage of the whole the farther you progress. Now, for you jazz guys, if you want to build vocabulary in a logical way that is also historically accurate, you take your original major and minor triads, a line, 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 or space, 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 right? And you can add one note to that original major or minor triad, and you get a 4-note cell, which is what John Coltrane, Joe Henderson brought to the table. All right, so we're keeping our original line, 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 space, 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 major, minor triad. You add an extra note between the bottom 2 or between the top 2, and you get a 4-note cell. So we've only increased the new material. We already had a 3-note thing. We had 1 note. We've increased the new material by 33%. We're not discarding what we already knew. We're adding to it, but the percentage that we're adding becomes smaller and smaller. Now, once you have your major and minor 4-note cell, you can add an extra note to the top of that. We're keeping our original 4 notes, and you get a major pentatonic, major 6 pentatonic, or minor 7 pentatonic. Right? So we already had 4-note thing. We're keeping that. And what's a major 7 and a minor 6 pentatonic sound like? Well, they sound like the original 4-note cells with an extra note added to the top. What does a 4-note cell sound like? It sounds like a major or minor triad with an extra note added in between, right? So the spelling is a comparison to the past knowledge and experience. The sound is also compared to the past knowledge and experience, right? And the percentage of the new concept that's truly new becomes smaller and smaller and smaller the longer you progress. And once we have our 5-note, our pentatonic, if you want to, you can add a chromatic passing tone to the major 6 pentatonic or the minor 7 pentatonic. And if you want to play some blues or some rock and roll or some smooth jazz, that's where you get a blues scale, right? So now we've only increased the new percentage, the new variable, by 20%. We had a 5-note thing, and we added 1 note to it, right? And so that's what a blues scale is. A blues scale is a pentatonic with chromatic passing tone. A pentatonic is a 4-note cell with an extra note added to the top. A 4-note cell is a triad with an extra note added in between. So every new concept is a continuation of past concepts. Every current concept is an introduction to future ones. They're all connected. It's a linear path. And the ear training follows right along. And so what most of the kids do wrong is they don't learn the original major scales by sight, by spelling, and by sound. What they do is they get out their scale sheet and they practice their fingerings. They practice their slide position. They practice their valves. They practice the technique. They don't recognize it by sight. They never even thought about that. They're just trying to learn how to play it. And then when they try to move on to a future concept, well, it's nothing but variables, right? If all they know about the major scale is the technique, well, then when they try to do triads, well, it's a whole new set of technique, right? You got to completely start over again. And then when they try to move to minor scales, well, now they got, you got 36 of those, right? So you got a whole new set of variables. So you're completely starting over again. And very, very quickly, it becomes prohibitive because the new concepts are not continuations of the previous ones. The new concepts are 100% new. So if you're doing this correctly, as you progress, the percentage of the new concept that's truly new material becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, while your base knowledge that you're referencing becomes larger and larger and larger. And so advanced concepts are far easier to learn than basic ones. My name's Mark Dooley. I've been a private music teacher for 36 years, focused on practical theory and music literacy. If you'd like to hear more, follow me. If you'd like lessons, contact me. If you can learn how to read words, you can learn how to read music.